Right, let's be absolutely clear about this. While our cousins across the pond were obsessed with enormous V8 SS and trucks the size of small aircraft carriers, Europe was having a different sort of party. They were crafting some of the most exhilarating, ingeniously engineered and downright fun vehicles ever to grace a stretch of tarmac. These weren't just cars, they were statements, little rebellions on wheels designed for roads that actually have corners. But here's the real kicker: America never got them, not a sniff. While American roads were full of pickups and muscle cars, Europe was quietly building these pocket rockets, these rally-bred monsters, these sublime pieces of automotive art. And today we're diving headfirst into the glorious, forbidden world of underrated European cars that Americans missed out on. Trust me on this, because I've driven most things with an engine. Some of these machines weren't just quite good. They were revolutionary. They would have been absolute game changers on American soil, injecting a much-needed dose of flair, handling prowess and pure, unadulterated driving joy into a market that sometimes takes itself a bit too seriously. So buckle up, because this is going to be a tantalizing glimpse of what you could have won. Or rather, what you were never even offered. While American roads were full of pickups and muscle cars, Europe was quietly building some of the most fun, fast and innovative vehicles. But here's the kicker: we never got them. Today we're diving into underrated European cars that Americans missed out on. And trust me, some of these would have been game changers. Now imagine, if you will, a perfectly sensible, rather unassuming French hatchback. The sort of thing you'd expect to see parked outside a boulangerie, perhaps with a baguette poking jauntily from the passenger seat. That's the Renault Cleo. Millions of them built, perfectly adequate for popping to the shops. But then some engineers at Renault, presumably after a very long lunch involving a significant quantity of red wine and possibly some questionable cheese, had a moment of pure, unadulterated genius, or perhaps madness. The line is often wonderfully blurred in France, especially when it comes to cars. They took this humble shopping trolley, looked at the back seats and thought, no, we don't need those. What we need is an engine. And not just any engine, mind you. They grabbed a whacking great 3-litre V6, normally found in much larger, more sedate Renaults, and with a Gallic shrug and a muttered pourquoi pas, they shoehorned it where the children and the weekly shop used to reside. Yes, mid-mounted, like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, only, you know, in a Clio. This transformed it from a city runabout into a snarling, wide-arched, rear-wheel drive lunatic, with nearly 250 horsepower in its later Phase 2 guise, in a car that's small and relatively light. The Clio V6 was, to put it mildly, a bit of a handful. It wasn't just fast, it was an event. The noise, the induction roar right behind your head, the way it demanded your absolute attention on a challenging road, it was utterly intoxicating. It had the kind of character that modern, sanitized hot hatches can only dream of. It was a proper homologation special, built in tiny numbers, first by Tom Walkinshaw Racing in Sweden, then back in Dieppe by Renault Sport. This wasn't some marketing exercise. It was the real terrifying deal. So why didn't America get this slice of French automotive insanity? Well, can you imagine trying to explain this to a focus group in Des Moines? It's a tiny hatchback, sir, but the engine's in the back. There are no rear seats. It costs as much as a proper sports car, and it might try to kill you if you're not paying attention. They'd have been laughed out of the room, possibly committed. It was probably deemed too wild, too impractical, too French. But for those of us who appreciate cars that are utterly bonkers, the Clio V6 remains an absolute legend. Too cool to ignore? It's too cool to exist, frankly. All right, let's talk hot hatches. America, you got the Volkswagen Golf GTI. And yes, it was and is a very good car. Sensible, well-built, reasonably quick. The Germans as ever doing competence with ruthless efficiency. But while you were patting yourselves on the back for discovering that small cars could be fun, Europe, and particularly France, was having a slightly more effervescent party. And the guest of honor, the life and soul, was the magnificent Peugeot 205 GTI. This wasn't just another hot hatch. For many, the hot hatch. Compared to the Golf of the era, the 205 GTI was like a shot of pure adrenaline versus a sensible pint of lager. It was lighter, significantly lighter, which, as any fuel know, is the secret to true driving pleasure. It was rawer, more connected. You didn't so much drive the 205 GTI as wear it. It communicated every nuance of the road surface, every shift in grip, directly to your fingertips and the seat of your pants. It was a car that made you feel like a driving god, even if you were just nipping out for a pint of milk, which, incidentally, would probably be curdled by the time you got back. Such would be your enthusiasm. Journalists across Europe didn't just praise the 205 GTI, they fell head over heels in love with it. It regularly topped group tests, lauded for its sublime handling balance, its eager engines, first a 1.6, then the even more potent 1.9, and its sheer, unadulterated joie de vivre. Enthusiasts, meanwhile, bought them in droves, thrashed them mercilessly on B-roads, and cemented its status as an icon. It wasn't just a car, it was a cultural phenomenon. It defined a generation of affordable performance, a benchmark that many have tried to emulate but few have truly matched for pure, unpretentious fun. And America, you got the Golf. And later, some other perfectly acceptable but ultimately less thrilling alternatives. The absence of the Peugeot 205 GTI from American shores is frankly a travesty. It's like being invited to a banquet and only being allowed to eat the bread rolls. You missed out on one of the most engaging, rewarding and downright brilliant front-wheel drive cars ever conceived. A car that could turn any journey into an adventure. And that, my friends, is a genuine copper-bottomed shame, a crying shame. Now, if the Peugeot 205 GTI was a scalpel, precise and delicate, then the Lancia Delta Integrale was a ruddy, great battle axe. Forged in the heat of competition, designed with one purpose and one purpose only, to utterly dominate the World Rally Championship. And dominate it did. 6 consecutive manufacturers' titles from 1987 to 1992. 6! That's not just winning, that's rubbing everyone else's nose in it year after year. This car wasn't just built rally stages, the rally stage personified in metal. The recipe was brutal and effective. Take a fairly unassuming Italian hatchback, the Delta, which in its standard form was a hatchback. Then inject it with a cocktail of pure aggression. Turbocharged engine, initially an 8-valve, then evolving into the even more ferocious 16-valve. Permanent 4-wheel drive, a system so sophisticated for its time it could make a mountain goat look clumsy. And those box-flared wheel arches, bulging with intent, barely able to contain the wide, sticky tyres. This wasn't a car that whispered its performance credentials, it screamed them from every angle. The result was a road car that felt like it had just driven straight off a special stage, covered in mud and glory. The driving experience was raw, visceral, the turbo lag was monumental, followed by a savage kick in the kidneys that pinned you to your seat. The grip from the all-wheel drive system was astonishing, allowing you to deploy all that power in conditions where other cars would be spinning their wheels ineffectually. It was demanding, yes, but incredibly rewarding. It was, in short, an icon, a homologation special that actually felt special, not just a cynical marketing ploy. And yet, this Italian hero, this conqueror of worlds, never officially graced American showrooms during its glorious prime. Why? The usual excuses, I imagine. Emissions regulations too complex, crash safety standards too different, Lancia's already shaky reputation in the US from previous, less reliable offerings. Whatever the reason, America missed out on one of the defining performance cars of the late 80s and early 90s. A car with more character in its aggressively creased bonnet than most entire model ranges. A true legend, denied, utterly denied. Chapter 4. Alfa Romeo 156 GTA, the Italian sedan with the voice of an angel and the heart of a devil. Alfa Romeo. The name itself conjures images of passion, style, and a certain unpredictability. For years, Americans were starved of new Alfas, a cruel deprivation of Italian automotive artistry. And one of the most delectable dishes they missed from Alfa's menu during that wilderness period was the sensational 156 GTA. This wasn't just a faster version of the already beautiful 156 sedan and sport wagon. Oh no, this was something far more special. This was Alfa Romeo, letting its engineers and designers off the leash. At the heart of the 156 GTA, beating like a passionate Italian tenor, was the legendary 3.2-litre Peugeot V6. Now, I've heard many engines in my time, some good, some bad, some utterly forgettable, but the Peugeot V6, that, my friends, is in a different league altogether. It wasn't just an engine, it was a musical instrument. The way it revved, the sound it made, a glorious, sonorous howl that could make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, was, and I say this without a hint of exaggeration, one of the finest automotive soundtracks ever produced. Pure mechanical opera. But the 156 GTA wasn't just about that magnificent engine, it was a complete package. The styling, already a high point with the standard 156, was subtly enhanced with more aggressive bumpers, side skirts, and those iconic teledial alloy wheels. The handling was sharpened, the suspension firmed up, creating a sports sedan that could genuinely thrill on a challenging road, yet still retain a degree of Italian suppleness. It managed to combine that elusive blend of style, raw performance, and pure, unadulterated emotion in a way that few sedans, before or since, have ever managed. And where was America while all this Latin magic was unfolding? Well, they were probably buying something beige and reliable. The 156 GTA, with its fiery V6 and its passionate soul, never officially turned a wheel on US soil. They missed the entire party, the whole glorious, noisy, beautiful Alfa Romeo celebration. It was a car that reminded you why you fell in love with driving in the first place. A car with a personality so vibrant it felt alive. And America? Denied. Completely and utterly denied the pleasure. Tragic, really. Chapter 5. The Ford Puma ST's proof that Ford Europe still knows how to have fun, unlike Ford America sometimes. Now, let's fast forward to more recent times because the injustice doesn't just live in the past. Oh no. The modern automotive landscape, particularly in America, is awash with crossovers. Bland, blobby, high-riding boxes that promise adventure but usually only deliver a slightly better view of the traffic jam ahead. They are, for the most part, automotive white goods, utterly devoid of soul. But over in Europe, Ford decided to inject some actual, genuine fun into this segment with the new Puma ST. This isn't your grandma's EcoSport, let me tell you. The Puma ST takes the rather sensible and surprisingly stylish for a small crossover Puma platform and then hands it over to the Ford Performance division. The same geniuses who brought us brilliant Focus and Fiesta STs. They've worked their magic, infusing it with what they call rally DNA. What that translates to is a compact crossover that handles with the verve and agility of a proper hot hatchback. It's got a punchy 1.5-litre turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, nearly 200 horsepower, and crucially, a proper limited-slip differential option. Think about that. A small practical crossover that you can genuinely enjoy chucking down a twisty B-road. It's got sharp steering, a playful chassis, and an engine that buzzes with an unexpected amount of character for a 3-pot. While America gets larger, often more cumbersome SUVs from Ford, Europe gets this little firecracker. A car that proves practicality doesn't have to come at the expense of driving pleasure. It's a car that makes you smile, a car that makes you want to take the long way home. It's a Ford that remembers how to make small fun cars. And the Americans, well, they get the Bronco Sport, which is rugged, and the Escape, which is a crossover. But this little bundle of turbocharged joy, this Puma ST that could genuinely liven up the school run or a weekend blast, nope, not for you. Ford decided that America simply wasn't ready, or perhaps didn't deserve, a compact crossover with actual hot hatch handling and a mischievous grin. It's not fair, Ford, it's really not fair. You build it, it's brilliant, and then you dangle it just out of reach. That's just mean. Chapter 6. The forbidden fruit we barely scratched the surface of. Honestly, the cars we've looked at so far, they're just the tip of a very large, very desirable, and very much out of reach iceberg for our American friends. The list of truly fascinating, genuinely brilliant European cars that never got their US visas is depressingly long. Take, for example, the Citroën C6, a big wafting French executive saloon with hydro-pneumatic suspension so smooth it could glide over a ploughed field without spilling your champagne. It was wonderfully idiosyncratic, supremely comfortable, and utterly uniquely French. Too weird for America? Probably. But what a magnificent kind of weird it was. Then there are the various Skoda VRS models. Now, Skoda, for those of you in the US who might only know the name from Cold War jokes, is a Czech manufacturer owned by Volkswagen. And their VRS cars are essentially VW GTIs or Audi S models in a more practical, often better value and arguably more understated package. Think potent turbocharged engines, sharp handling and big boots. The Octavia VRS in particular has for years been the thinking man's performance car in Europe, fast, spacious and discreet. America got the Jetta GLI, which is fine, but the sheer breadth and capability of the VRS range, another miss. And what about the sheer unadulterated lunacy of things like the Opel Speedster or the Vauxhall VX220 as it was known in Britain, essentially a Lotus Elise, rebodied and re-engined by General Motors' European arm. It was light, it was raw, it was incredibly focused, and it offered supercar-scaring performance for a fraction of the price. Can you imagine the fun you could have had with one of those on a Californian canyon road? But no, GM, in its infinite wisdom, decided that Americans didn't need a lightweight mid-engine sports car with an Opel badge. Apparently Corvettes were enough. Spoilers, they weren't. The truth is, Europe has been hoarding some of the coolest, most innovative and most characterful cars for decades, from quirky city cars to high-performance wagons, from elegantly styled coupes to rugged little off-roaders you've never heard of. The reasons are many: regulations, market tastes, corporate apathy, but the result is the same. A vast catalogue of automotive experiences that an entire continent of enthusiasts simply never got to sample, and that, more than anything, is a crying shame. It's a whole dimension of motoring, lost in translation, or rather lost in transatlantic shipping. Outro, the European dream cars that remained just dreams for America, so there you have it. A tantalizing, perhaps even frustrating glimpse into an alternative automotive universe, from the